Come on. Good evening. Good to see everybody. Welcome to the North Augusta City Council study session for Monday, June the 10th, 2024. It's good to see everybody. Thank you for being here. And this time, I'd like to turn it over to our city administrator, Mr. Jim Clifford.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. We'll have 3 items for tonight. One is the agenda review. Second will be department details. And lastly, under Mayor's Matters, we'll be doing a focus item about a Oscaga Lake rezone, which is actually embedded in the agenda. So when we get to that agenda item, I'm just going to pass it to the focus item for later in the meeting. So with that, we can go ahead and move into the agenda for next week. We have a fair amount of old business, and we also have to highlight we've got 2 retirements that we'll be highlighting for next week as well, for Jeff Holloway and William Folks. So under old business, we have planning and development ordinance number 2024-09, amending Article 5. Tommy had discussed this in great detail, as had Kelly, regarding the code itself and kind of flopping the 1 and 2 use. There were still some questions about future changes to the code, and Tommy's got that for action now. But this is strictly to get this in line with what the council's intent was for the development code as it was, came out of committee and then came to the council for the consideration. So I'll pause for any questions on that particular item, but I think you all hashed that out pretty well in the last couple of sessions. Yep. The next 2 items are both under planning and development. Ordinance number 2024-10 and then 2024-11 are linked. So 2024-10, this would be the second reading to change the corporate limits of the city of North Augusta by accepting the petition requesting annexation by the landowners and annexing plus or minus 3.65 acres located on Landback Way. And so to orient the council on a map, if you were looking just south of Fire Station 3, and if you were heading northbound on 520 and you look to the left-hand side there, south of the fire station, that's the road that we're talking about. That's Landback Way. It's partially in and partially out of the city. And so they have a plan there to develop approximately 1 acre lots, just under 1 acre per lot. And so in order to do that, they're looking to annex. And so ordinance number 2024-10 is the annexation request. And then ordinance number 2024-11 is the zoning request to make those R14 single lot, large lot for the city, which we don't get a lot of those. And so again, we talked about that pretty in depth last study session, also at the council meeting. But I'll pause for any questions on those 2 ordinances that are linked together.
Jim, the one on Landback Way, like you say, going to R14, are they doing that because we don't have sewer services and they're going to have to do a septic tank? Or just curious, I mean, when some of this is annexed in, are we able to get them services? Or okay,
yeah, that's probably why, Councilman.
That's probably why. Okay.
All right. Then moving on to the next 2 items, which are related but not necessarily linked. You can vote those independently. The first is for Parks and Rec, ordinance number 2024-12, authorizing a restructure of personnel for the Department of Parks and Rec for the second reading. And again, that's taking 2 part-time positions and doing 1 full-time position. The priority for that position is to do weekend coverage, although that's not the exclusive domain of that position, and it's really the discretion of Rick Myers, the director, to move them around as they see fit. But again, this is an out-of-cycle change. It's revenue neutral for this coming year, the year that we're in. But as we go into 25, it'll be a slight increase on the general fund for that position. Likewise, ordinance number 2024-13, authorizing restructure of personnel for the Department of Public Services and Public Works. Really what you're dealing with there is 1 position that's part-time in Public Works in the Building Standards Department, and then 1 for the Finance Department. And so that position has never been filled. And so this would allow us to take 2 part-time positions in different directors to be able to share 1 full-time position. We intend to take one of our part-time employees and fleet them up to a full-time position where they would share duties. And some of the duties are similar across departments between the Finance Department and with the Building Standards. So, do you have any questions on that item?
We're good.
Okay. Moving on to new business, we have a few. So the first is under planning and development, ordinance number 2024-14 to amend the zoning map in the city of North Augusta by rezoning approximately 120.79 acres of land owned by James M. Ford at Aiken County Tax Parcel 021-1701-001 from R10 medium lot single family to R7 small lot single family, and this will be for the first reading. I'm not going to go in depth on this during the agenda review because this is the focus item for tonight, and the developer is here to talk through kind of what their plan is directly to the council before this would go to council action. And then under administration resolution number 2024-25, authorizing a permit for construction work, and I'll check that over to JD.
Good evening. This is a request for a permit to operate outside of our normal construction hours for the Beacon Bluff project, as well as the Augusta Oncology project. They're looking to do concrete pours in the late evening or early morning. Sorry, and that was a request that we got from the contractor to do that. It's not something it's not outside of something we've normally done. We've done that for Fire Station 1 is the most recent approval you have done, and that's all I have for that. Do you guys have any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Now, once we change this resolution, like people who live in neighborhoods in construction, because that's one of the big problems, let's say River Club.
Councilwoman, this is an individual request for this specific project.
Just not all
It's not, you're not changing the rules associated with this. This is an exception to the rule.
Yep. It's just a one-time for that project. Any other questions for that resolution? No. Okay. Then should I move on to the next? Sure. The next is the first of a few resolutions that you'll get, but this is for the downtown electrical project that we're working on. This is a resolution to authorize the infrastructure work for electrical improvements down Georgia Avenue. This comes before the aesthetic improvements that we're looking to do in terms of lighting, the downtown lighting that we had talked about previously as part of the ARPA 12 request. This is kind of the guts that goes along with the pretty part. So we have to do this part first, and Tom is working on bidding that out right now. So this will be ready for Monday for your approval. Any questions on that resolution, Council? Mayor, Council?
Well, one question.
Sure.
Would there be electrical outlets on every pole? Because I know at Jacqueline and Jubilee, and you have these people coming in that need electricity.
Yes, ma'am.
But you know, they might be up there and the outlets down here.
Yes, ma'am. This project, this is first of three resolutions you guys will see. The first one is the infrastructure that will improve the pedestals, which are the gray boxes. You see them on the ground right now. They're kind of broken. Some of them don't work. Tom and Rick and a few of us went downtown and did an audit of what works, what doesn't work. So those are all going to be replaced, so they all work. And then there are also going to be a resolution for some spider boxes, which are those big outlet, multiple outlets in one box that plug into the, for lack of better terms, Eric, you probably can correct me with the terminology here, but we use them for the amphitheater, and we're going to get those to plug into the boxes that you see by the Wells Fargo building, so all these vendors can plug into them, and also we can have one for our main stage and VIP areas, so we don't have to use generators.
Yeah, Councilman, that's kind of what we're trying to get to. Our council is this is really JD and the team over here did a good job of really trying to solve multiple problems with one technical solution set. So ideally, what we don't want to have during JOJ is to have individual vendors out there with their little generators, and so this will be an ability for us to be able to handle that as not just a JOJ fix, but then for those of you who went to Greenville and saw how they have the lights in the trees and this is all part of the guts of that operation. Subject to any council questions, that's the agenda review, and I will turn it over to Jamie for department details.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. First up for department details is Finance, Linda Williamson.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. At first, our Cycle 2 due date will be June 17th, and our Cycle 1 disconnect dates are going to be June 18th and 19th. And just an update on our software, we have begun the data migration portion of it, so we are getting our information into the new software.
That's exciting.
It is exciting.
Thank you, Linda.
You're welcome.
And next department is Public Services, James Sutton.
Mayor, Council, I'd like to update you on a forthcoming EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, lead and copper rule that's going to potentially go into effect in the fourth quarter of this year. It's going to be two areas it's going to impact us on is on the utility distribution side and the water treatment quality side. I got Superintendent Greg Schaffer with me tonight, who's going to brief you on some water quality things that we're going to be involved in. But moving forward with the regulations that's forthcoming, it's more or less on the lead side. It's going to impact any construction home that was built in 1978 or prior, where lead pipe was installed in the plumbing system or the galvanized pipe was installed in the water distribution system. Under the new regulation, the EPA is requiring the city not only to audit and obtain all the service lines of the materials in our water distribution system, but also get feedback and reports from the customers on the type pipe they have that goes from the water meter that serves their home across their private property. Collecting and gathering information is going to be a challenge, but we're moving forward with some public relations information that we're going to be providing out. We're going to have several means for them to provide that information back to us. Number one, here in the next week or so, we're going to be sending out a questionnaire that they can return to us, more or less identifying what type of plumbing pipes they have. We're also going to have an online form on our website. And just for the ease of operations, we're going to have them so they can call into our Public Services Administrative Secretary and report what type of service line material they have. There's a lot to be done. Utility staff is currently in the process of going through and collecting all this data. We're going to have hard copies available and maps and such whenever they come down to do the physical audit. So there's some things that's unknown, but the way they're pressing forward, it's definitely, I would say, 99% going to happen. So we are getting prepared for it. We will be prepared for it. We will meet the deadline as they're required.
So you need to get all that done by the fourth quarter. That's when they're coming.
Yes, sir. We have to have our report filed to EPA by October 16th.
So besides the website and everything, JD, we need to definitely get it on the social media site so council, we can forward that on Facebook.
Yes,
help
sir.
you with that too.
And I'll
Have it written up for us so I can start promoting it too.
Yes, sir. I'll coordinate that with Mr. McCauley and make sure once we get everything, more or less our stuff's going to let out about the same time period. Okay. With the mailing, the website. Website's probably about 90% complete. The mailing letter is just about complete. So everything I would say is just about complete, but we're going to roll it out within the next 2 weeks total. In the same, we will be working with the homeowners. We can't encroach on their personal property to do any type of surveys. And in the same, we don't want to go out. I know there's a lot of agencies out there who are going on properties, identifying the pipes for homeowners and looking for lead, but I don't know that our staff needs to be involved in that. We go out and make a wrong judgment call at somebody's house, we could be liable for it. But anyway, we will work with the customers to the best of our abilities and the extent of our insurance carrier lets us. But other than that, if you ain't got any questions for me, I'm going to turn this over to Greg. Please.
I got just one. Our water meter reader guys, is it still, they have to, pull the cover and read it? I mean, is that possible to have them look at it? Because a lot of homeowners aren't going to know if they got galvanized PVC, could be PEX.
Well, Mr. President, yeah, you're right. We have some of our meters that are automated. But yeah, this is more of a specialized inspection, not that they can't perform it, it just slow them down.
Right.
And the way things are with the amount that they read, in the timely manner to get things back into finance, they wouldn't have the time to inspect all the services.
Just thought.
Thank you, James.
Greg?
How are y'all?
We're good, Greg. How you?
All right, so just go over some of the chemical side of lead in the drinking waters. So currently, there's no drinking water or no lead in the drinking water as it leaves the water plant or in the transmission mains. Where it happens is where it comes in contact in the service lines and fixtures inside the home. So some of the factors that can affect it is pH of the water, temperature of the water, how long it stays motionless in the mains, and if there's any protective coatings or scale inside the plumbing that could keep it from coming in contact with the water. We do currently operate a corrosion control program, and we monitor various parameters every day at the water plant. We adjust the pH to get it in optimum levels so that it doesn't cause corrosion. We monitor the alkalinity and the hardness of the water just to make sure that no drastic changes can happen in the distribution system. And then we also apply a zinc orthophosphate in the drinking water, which creates that coating inside of our pipes and service lines to keep keep a barrier between the water and any potential lead that there may be in the distribution system or in the customer's home. So currently the action level of lead is 0.015 milligrams per liter, or 15 parts per billion. And the action level of copper is 1.3 milligrams per liter. And our latest lead and copper sample collection, which was done last July, it was our 90th percentile, so 90% of all the samples that we collected in the distribution system, 0.0017 milligrams per liter, or 1.7 parts per billion, is what was detected in the distribution or at the customers' homes that we collected samples from, and that's 89% of the action level. So we're far under what the current action level is, and even when it changes from 15 parts per billion to 10, we'll still be far under the action level.
That's good.
Y'all have any questions for me regarding that?
I don't have any questions regarding that, and this may be more for James, but so this rule is being implemented, what are the repercussions for what are the expectations on responses? It sounds like most of the issues that we're going to have regarding lead are going to be the homeowners. What are the expectations on a response, and what are the repercussions? What are the actual requirements of this?
Well, the requirement on the distribution side is once we obtain the inventory, we are checking the city side tap, what type of material it is at the meter, and the customer side. We have some age galvanized pipe, and they're referring that as galvanized wood pipe that's requiring replacement. That's where we come in, where we're going to be required within a 10-year period to eliminate all the galvanized pipe. We have some galvanized pipe. We replaced hundreds of service lines that's made of galvanized throughout the years, and we have some water mains targeted that are going to be replaced, and those service lines will be replaced under those construction projects. So we're not going to have a problem doing that over a 10-year period. Once we get everything compiled, there's also going to be some federal money involved. Don't know the extent. What I read through, there's some requirements that we'll have to look at a little closer to make sure that we're covered by receiving those funds. It's not a 100% grant, but once we get everything finished and finalized, prior to us releasing that information to EPA, we'll do an administrative report, council report, and mayor report, come back and give you all a presentation of where we're at with our system.
Thanks, James.
Great, thanks, James. Good question, Kevin.
Okay, and with that, next is Planning and Development, Tommy Paradise.
Mayor and council, I'll be much shorter on this phase anyway. We have the Planning Commission meeting Wednesday week on the 19th.
Thank you, Tom.
Okay, and Captain Hayes for Public Safety.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. A couple things. Last week, Public Safety, we completed our first year reaccreditation assessment with CALEA. Out of the standards they checked, we're 100% compliance. We're happy about that. This Wednesday, June the 12th, our SWAT team will be hosting a multi-agency training at North Augusta Middle School. So there'll be an increased presence over there. And our weekly shift training is going to continue this Thursday, the 13th. We'll be in and around Riverview Park, Hammond Hills, Georgetown area. We'll make sure to push those out on our social media platforms so the residents know what we're up to.
Thank you, Captain Hayes. Appreciate it, sir.
Next up, Parks and Recreation, Rick Meyer.
Speaking of software, Parks and Recreation is getting new Rec Desk software that will go live July 1st, and three of the benefits. Number one, online registration for fall sports. Number two, will give our staff the ability to send out group texts and emails instantaneously, letting our participants know games are canceled, give them information about registration dates. And number three, allow our staff an easier program to use, including the director here. Don't have to have an IT brain to use it. Number two, this week, our maintenance team will be pressure washing the Center Street Tunnel in preparation for the mural. And with that in mind, once we start pressure washing, we'll need to close that tunnel, and the artists will be in there June 17th through the 23rd. So we'll be putting that out. In fact, it's already out on social media that the tunnel will have to be blocked and closed from folks using it. Riverview Park, starting tonight, is hosting SCAP District Girls All-Star Fast Pitch Tournament through Wednesday. Also, the Activity Center Gym 2 will be a polling location for South Carolina primary elections tomorrow. And lastly, Friday, we got a great surprise. Pam and George Stickler and Pat Carpenter were there. Just tip of the cap to Georgia Rehab. Dennis Skelly, they were an initial donor of $250,000, and they handed them a check for another $100,000 on Friday, and that was just awesome.
Kayak launch. I mean, he's loving
Yes,
North Augusta.
yes, he has.
I mean, that's huge.
So I will end with that, unless you have any questions. Yes,
Rick,
Pat.
is the Riverview Park voting, all precincts are there, or just?
No. I don't know if they're combined. That part I don't, because I know Carl will be telling you community centers one as well.
So we just go to our normal precinct?
I can't answer that question.
I'm going to make a couple announcements what I know.
Oh, okay. 'Cause that's very confusing to people.
What I know.
And one more question. Rick's my brother. On the registration, like people like me who have private camps, and of course I pay the Rick for that. It's not like I get that free. I pay. But will people be able to register online? Because right now they're having to come in person and register. Will you have private camps?
Going forward, they will. Not
what now?
Going forward, they will be able to do that. Yes, they're not going to be able to register for your camp next
No,
week.
not this time, but I'm talking about
yes.
next year.
Yes, that would be correct.
Okay, because that's the main question they ask. Can we register online?
Yes.
I have to tell them sad news. No.
Pretty soon they will be able to do it.
Well, one thing, by sending them in, then they see how wonderful it is. And they could join. So there's a
There
good
you go.
side to it.
Yep. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Rick.
Okay, next tourism, Carl Waldhauer.
All right, good evening, Mayor and Council. As Rick kind of mentioned, we're also going to be a polling location for the primaries tomorrow. The community center from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., which I had more detail about how all that operated, but I know we were asked. We're more than happy to help out the election commission with that. Just to kind of inform y'all, the red trolley that we have, the one trolley we have in service is down right now. Jason Sykes got on top of it as soon as it went down and pulled a part out of the transmission to be rebuilt. Whenever that part gets remanufactured and sent back to us, he'll install it and we'll be back in business there. But City of Aiken's been gracious enough to lend us a 20-passenger bus for us to use to cover our obligations over the past week and a half. On the event side, Music in the Parks can continue this Thursday at 7 p.m. featuring Matthew Dickerson. Just remind you, it's rain or shine. We always have the banquet room, the community center reserved for rain dates. So rain or shine, come out of that. And next Thursday, it'll continue, as well as market calendar for third Thursday on June 20th as well.
Thank you all.
Next up is Engineering and Public Works, Tom Zeser.
Good evening. I think the last time I updated you on the Woodlawn Avenue problem, the slope failure near Lake Avenue, it was in the hands of the DOT. They were reviewing a conceptual plan that we had submitted to them, and anyway, they had a contractor perform a takeoff and a cost estimate of that work. And he arrived at an estimated construction cost of $1.1 million. So the DOT declined to participate financially in the project. Anyway, so we did submit a written request to the Aiken County Transportation Committee, and some of you and we were informed verbally so far that they did set aside that amount, $1.1 million funding available for that project. We haven't received anything formally written. We understand there may be some matching cost obligation to the city, which hopefully we can contribute in the form of engineering design services, which we still have to do. We have not yet developed full construction plans for that project. So it's good news, and hopefully I'll have an actual timeline to construct very soon.
Ken McDowell sits on that for us as a representative.
Yeah.
Very supportive. So when you see him, thank you.
Yeah, he was a strong advocate.
Did you say something about Lake Avenue?
It's near Lake Avenue.
Woodlawn
near the
Lake.
intersection.
Now, what about, I sent you and Jim that about Lake Avenue, it had the big hole that the lady had put on Facebook, and did y'all check into that?
My understanding was that crews had responded and made repairs to that location last week.
Okay, good. And
The same day that we received it.
now I'm gonna say, since Mr. Kelly Mobley's sitting out there, this, and I'm gonna bring this up every time. Madison Road, which we all call the dirt road in North Augusta, it's nothing but a big holy situation. Boom-kity, boom, 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 all the way down. And I know I've talked to Tom, and this has been 2 and 3 years. We never can figure out if it's county or who's responsible, the city. But if you don't know about it, it's like I said, call the dirt road to those residents. But it's really Madison. It's directly behind Mossy Creek. And those poor people need that road paved. I do not know how their car is not constantly tore up coming through it. And I mean, it's not just little holes, it's ditches. All right, and then one more thing, Tom.
Well, can I respond to that?
Huh?
Can I respond to that?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, okay, go ahead.
So, yes, those are county residents. That is a county road.
It's what now? I can't hear.
Those are county residents, and that is Madison Avenue is a county road.
There you see it.
unimproved road. They have assured me that they receive and respond to requests for maintenance on that road. And
Yeah, but I'm telling you, Mr. Kelly, and I know Tom can't help, it does not need to go out there and scrape the road, because in a big rain, it's back to where it was. Those people need a road to get to their houses. Okay, hear me loud. All right, and then, wait a minute, there was one. Oh, and Tom, because I was talking to this engineer friend of mine yesterday, that aggravating on 5 Notch in Georgia, right at McDonald's, that you go straight in the left turn, which it should be reversed, go straight and right turn. I'm telling you, I sit in that red light 3 times some days because people are trying to, also people are running into each other. Like I'm supposed to go straight, here comes the right lane. So you right there together. That needs to be changed. And you can tell them, engineer Pat Carpenter said that. Okay. But I mean that, I'm telling you, I just cannot imagine there hasn't been wrecks. And people are sitting there waiting on the left turn because those are coming straight and not a person's in the right lane that could shoot on across. I mean, you know I've complained about that for a good
That's
while.
something DOT's aware of, you think, Tom?
that intersection is under the DOT's authority.
Yeah, I know it is, but if you get me a number, I will call and get about 100 people to call. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you. All right, you need to call.
Me and my little. Who?
Okay.
Oh, there he is. There he is. You know what? I don't know why you're here tonight, but I know God put you here for the city of North Augusta.
I don't know if Kelly would agree with that, but yeah. But Bill,
Okay. And last up is Human Resources, Kayla Ferguson.
Evening, Mayor and Council. If you will look on the back of your department details, you will see our open employment opportunities. And that's all I have.
thank you.
Thank you all.
And I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Clifford.
Well, Kayla, I don't think you heard. Was waiter and waitresses last Monday at Snowcap. It was JD, Jamie, me, Kelly, David, and David. We took in $1,300 from tips and raffles. Okay, so that was a big deal.
Awesome. No, you're allowed to.
Mr. Mayor and Council, I'd like to, if I could, just introduce kind of how this focus item is going to get set up for y'all today. So this development that is under consideration, that's an agenda item for next week, went to the Planning Commission. A representative from Kimley Horn, you're familiar with that firm because they're the ones also doing the Georgia Avenue traffic calming, came and made a presentation to the Planning Commission. I wouldn't say that went spectacularly well, and the Planning Commission unanimously voted to not recommend that project. And then we had a subsequent meeting at the staff level with the developer, not the Kimley Horn folks, but the actual developer themselves, and came and talked to us about what was presented to the Planning Commission, and then also what their options were moving forward, and also what the as-built were, if you will, is what their rights are today. If they just said, hey, we're going to take the zoning as it is and build on that zoning. And so based on that conversation, Tommy Paradise and I thought it was worthwhile to have the developer come directly talk to you all about what was discussed in front of the Planning Commission, although you can certainly see that on YouTube or on the Facebook page, and then also talk about kind of the contents of the meeting that we had regarding their discussion going forward. And so ultimately what we want to do is give this developer an opportunity to come talk to you all today about what the project is, what they're looking to do, and then give you the option to say either have that item move forward on the agenda for you all to give it an up or down vote next week, or for this to go back to Planning Commission for other considerations based on different information that would be presented tonight as was to the Planning Commission. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tommy to see if I missed anything on the intro.
I think Mr. Clifford covered it well. One of the big concerns, I think, with the Planning Commission when they heard it was the changing from the R10 to the R7. That's 187 acres, more or less. And they're not tied to that development plan. It's just like any other rezoning. So the conceptual, I don't know that there was the issue with the conceptual, but the issue was, or a big issue for them was, you couldn't tie them to that particular plan. Just like Kelly would tell you, once it's rezoned, it's rezoned.
I believe also you have in front of you is hard copies of the rezoning plan. So you've got several pictures in there. The developer will be able to take it through, but I just want to make sure everybody's got a hard copy of this. Okay. With that, I will turn it over to the development team.
There, I am Lee Polzella with BRD Land and Investment. I did not speak at the Planning Commission meeting. We had our civil engineer, Kimley Horn, do that presentation. And there was a point where we knew we were we didn't describe where we were very well. So part of that is on us not showing the by right, which is what we have tonight, versus what we were asking for. A picture's worth 1,000 words. So this was a very well thought out plan. It took us about a year to get to where we were to take it forward to Planning Commission. The by right side, your western parcel, by right, you can cram in a pretty good amount of townhomes there, like more than the market would probably bear, I think. And then the one that we were asking for that you see in red, it was really came down to a lot size issue for us, because theoretically we were looking for a variance in lot sizes so we can mix the product, and mixing the product across the board would be way better than heavy loading townhomes on the west side and then putting all 70-foot lots on this piece. It's just not a good pairing when you start to look at when you go vertical with product. So working with Tommy, we were trying to get to what we would need, and we only needed to rezone this parcel. The other ones are by right as they stand. And doing that, we were trying to balance the site out with the different product widths, and also just not cramming in as many as we could. So we did we've done all of our due diligence on this. We had a voluntary neighborhood meeting on a Zoom call as well. I felt like it was the right thing to do to give the people in Howard Mill.
Excuse me, when was that?
Oh my.
I mean, has it been recently?
That was 2 months ago. It was right before planning.
When y'all pulled, remember you on the agenda?
Mm-hmm.
Then you pulled it. So is it right in that time?
It was before the planning commission.
Okay.
We had a neighborhood meeting on a Zoom before we went to planning commission to try to get an opportunity to get the feedback from the neighbors so that we understood some of the pressure points there. And so we voluntarily did that. I know it was opening us up to a good amount of criticism, but I felt like it was the right thing to do because it is an impact to these folks that have been there for a long time. In all of that, we did try to create a buffer between our back of lots and their back of lots, and also not connect to their existing neighborhood, even though there is future connections there for that specific purpose. We went back to the Fords to work out a deal to carve out the east side that is next to the state park. So we would have two major ingress egress points to this neighborhood, self-contained, as to not come through that neighborhood. We did talk through all of that. We also had a Zoom call with Parks and Rec about state park plans to the east side of us. We were trying to figure out if there was a way to somehow share an access. They don't really have their plan, I don't think, buttoned up yet. And we kind of came to the conclusion that right now we just need to self-contain ours. We did leave strategic openings and had planned a trail system through the neighborhood that will hopefully we don't know where their points are, but make it walkability from our neighborhood to the state park without having to get back in your car on Muskogee Lake. So through all of that process, and then the planning commission, and I'll bite the bullet for it, not having the by right plan to show the density difference, because it is significant. And it is not the right thing to do. I don't want to do that. And so getting to this point where we got kind of pigeonholed at that point was the zoning didn't really allow for the variance. And then we talked about doing a PD, and I'm like, well, that's not really the right thing here either. It's not really a mixed use plot of land. I can carve out 2 acres on the front and call it future commercial, and then we put a condition to it, but I don't think that's the right thing to do either. So in all of this, the ask is we're trying to get the product mix. We're trying to balance the site. It's coming down to lot sizes on this large chunk. And I've even, after the planning commission meeting, the site plan doesn't reflect it. But if you see the single families along the border of this west parcel, I don't have to point to this, but the ones that are squeezing the back of the property lines to the Howard Mill folks on that side, so the west side of the Howard Mill backyards to the single family backyards there, the original plan showed townhomes running right up along there, which wasn't the right thing to do either. But we can even give up some of those single family lots in that curve to even give them more of a natural buffer. And we were willing to do that as well. But the plan had already moved to planning commission, so we couldn't really make adjustments at that point.
Let me just make sure I ask you a couple questions. The piece on the left side, not what's in red, that is already R7.
It is.
Okay. And so, I mean, literally you could build tomorrow on R7.
We can. And
I know you don't want to. I'm saying you could do that.
And a lot of townhomes.
Okay. Right, so if the other piece that you want to rezone, will that change the mix on that? You're going to make changes, like you said, on this R7 anyway?
The plan that you see up here now is the plan we want to do, and it doesn't max out the density on that parcel.
That parcel, right.
So the only thing, and we have the other, I think the by right plan that will show you just how heavy it gets. It's we did a side-by-side comparison in one of your, yeah.
I got
so
you. Okay, yeah.
That's the difference.
Page 3. Okay.
And that's, again, Planning Commission didn't have the ability to see this side-by-side. We thought going in with lesser density, we were only asking for really, at the end of the day, lot size changes wouldn't have been what it was at the end of the day, and I understand it. But when you see it, you can see how it's just really unbalanced to do it the way that it is. And I think the exposure for you all is it's R7, BRD bails, somebody else can come in and do that worse. And there's no limitation.
Yeah, so right now on the far right, basically, if you did R7, R10, that's what it would look like. You could do that now without a problem. Right. What you're looking to do is what's on the left side.
Right.
How many more? It looks like to me, the one on the right, that's still R14. It looks like there's just as many lots in there as what y'all are proposing, or is it that number pretty close?
This plan is about 650, and that plan's about 450. There's about a 200 lot delta on these plans.
And then, of course, the townhomes, obviously, the right one. I mean, it seems to me the right one would create more density, more traffic, more issues.
Yeah, you look at
And that's showing as well when you do the by right connecting through Howard Mill, like fully doing what is there right now, and we're trying to avoid some of that.
If you don't mind, I mean, maybe we should know this. You talked about the state park. You talking about Misty Lake?
Yeah.
Okay.
Dominion sold it or gave it to the state.
Okay. I'm familiar with Misty Lake. I didn't know that was what they called the state park.
Now, my concern is several of the neighbors, and that's why I was wondering when you talked with them, was sort of against this project. Was that way it was at the Planning Commission?
It was.
Okay. So after talking to them, have they eased off a little bit or not?
Well, I mean, we've only been to Planning Commission. I would suspect at council that there will be a full house again. And honestly, they were very specific concerns that, stormwater, the runoff from the interchange that is now a problem there. Traffic, the existing traffic. And we didn't really defend our position because when we knew we lost the votes, I was like, we can talk this to death. Yeah. It's not going to get where we need to get. And we've got to figure out a tool to make everybody comfortable. But the bottom line with the storm runoff is, we've already done all of our due diligence. We have to deal with the existing conditions plus our impact. So that should improve that with our design. And then traffic's going to be the same way. I mean, we do have a TIA done. We have a draft. We are talking through potential. We know where the improvements are going to have to be made. At the end of the day, it's going to come down to DOT and the city and us trying to figure out what those measures look like to fix the problems that are already there, but also the additional traffic that's coming in.
And a couple more questions. You said there'd be a buffer between y'all and the neighbor. I mean, how many feet or what type?
So the tightest squeeze at the top of that plan was about 70 feet from back of lot to their to their back of lot, and leaving the natural tree buffer along that. And then when we were in Planning Commission, I was just looking at the squeeze on that other side, and the homeowners were here, and I was trying to catch them and talk to somebody about we can take those lots out and just create a little bit more of a buffer that is around that whole property. That property is in the county, so when we did the voluntary meeting, we recognize that as well, but we also recognize we're a direct impact to those folks, whether they're in the city or county.
And have y'all talked with Aiken County School Board? that's definitely going to impact our schools. You know, they just built Howard Middle, then the elementary's coming, but we only one high school in North Augusta. Have y'all talked with them? Because are these going to be like young families, you think, with children, or? I mean, I think that's a big deal impacting our schools.
And I do think with the mix of the townhomes and the single family, you're going to have the ability for an affordability play where, you know, you are going to have some young families. You're going to have some single house income folks that live there. We can't predict. The build out of this is probably 4 to 6 years. I'm going to say closer to 6. By the time we get our permit and then you do all the land disturbance and you start coming out of the ground, I get asked a lot about school systems, and honestly, we don't have control over that other than we can tell you what the plan is, what we think it is, and how long that's going to be. And then when the tax revenues we think are going to start coming in, and then, you know,
But it might do good just to talk to them, because, like I said, with all of this and what else, Highland, the building. Highland Springs, yeah. That's going to be a bunch of houses and families coming in that area. It might be we need to, not us, Aiken County needs to build a couple more schools, and with the 1 cent sales tax vote coming, I mean, you know, that. So I believe if I was you, I would speak with, right now it's King Lawrence.
Okay.
But the 1st of July will be Dr. Carl Murphy.
Okay.
They're the superintendents. And just say we're planning on, I mean, like I said, I know you can't say we're going to have 500 children. I know you can't do that. But put this in the back of their mind, so as they're planning for school systems, they know this.
Correct.
Thank you.
Lee, let me ask you, talk about the access. So currently, the property has access through Sudlow Crossing Phase 1 and Howard Mill Road.
Correct.
Okay. So, but you'll also have 2 additional access points.
So our plan does not connect to that existing neighborhood at all. We are trying to avoid that connection.
That's what I'm saying. You'll have 2 other access
We have the 2 east and west side.
and that will directly go in the Skaga Lake Road.
Correct.
So, and Tommy, that's going to require a traffic impact analysis, right? Because that Skaga Lake Road is crowded.
We have
in and out, so that's going to be big. Okay.
We have done a traffic impact analysis. I have the draft of it, and we are analyzing. Kenley Horn did that as well.
Okay.
I got a quick question for you. If this goes through, are y'all developer builders, or are you just going to develop it and then you have other builders buy the lots, traditional type neighborhood? I mean, what's your plan as far as that goes?
So we'll take it through permit for sure. We don't just rezone and walk out the door. So we're signed up through permit, and then it really just depends on the timing, but sometimes we do develop lots. So we'll develop the lots, and the vertical build is always another builder group, and we try to pair those groups product with the community there.
Yeah, I guess, because the one thing I see, we're seeing, in my opinion, a lot of developer builders coming and same floor plan, cookie cutters. I mean, is this potentially where someone could build a custom home? Can they hire their builder, or are y'all just going to build it out?
There's going to be a builder, and there's going to be consistency in it. This won't be a custom home build here. We are trying to put forth some material conditions on that on our end, just because there's a certain quality of the development that they're going to have to meet certain criteria.
Right, and the reason I bring it up, I mean, here in North Augusta, I mean, we have our high-end neighborhoods, and then we have starters. There's really nothing in the middle anymore, and we see a lot of these come, and they come and build them, and a lot of people say, I'd like to move somewhere, but there's nothing in between, and that's why I asked about the custom, building, because you take a wind tree back in the day in the 80s and 90s, that was different builders building on custom lots. Same thing with Hammond Hills when it was first developed in the 50s all the way through the 70s. So is it possible that some of the lots could be custom lots, or are y'all going to just develop them all out?
The plan right now would be to develop them all out and master plan it, and have 1 or 2 different builder products in there. I will say that on the towns. We are doing 22-foot towns at the moment. The other plan, in your neighboring community, there's quite a few 20-foot townhomes, and that 2 feet makes a big difference on the look of a community. So I think that vertically, we're gonna have material specifications.
Okay.
And
I mean, you'll have a certain guideline, I guess. And how many different floor plans do you expect your builders, or
I don't know, because I don't know what we have yet.
So you haven't got to the builder part. You're primarily developing it, and then you're going to work with the builder after you've developed it.
Correct.
Okay.
And so there'll be a mix of sizes. You'll
Gotcha.
have ranches, you'll have 2 stories. The townhomes will be consistent.
Okay. Well, the townhomes, yeah. I mean, I agree.
Right.
But, but the neighborhood itself could have varying floor plans. I mean,
It will.
I'm not trying to pick on any builders, but you're not going to get like a Crown Community coming in here or a JR Homes. I mean, obviously, if we rezone this, you could do that, and they're going to build the whole neighborhood up. And that's why I want to. I mean, if we rezone it, then they could sell the land to someone else too. It's just one of these things we see over and over again.
Right.
I mean, you're probably the first traditional developer because everybody else is the developer and the builder all in one. So that's. I guess that's all the questions I have.
I don't really have any questions. I mean, looking at the plan, I think, I mean, as has been stated, as it's currently zoned, the density would be higher than what your plan is. I think, and you touched on it before, and I don't know that that's necessarily a question for you or for Tommy, but, as you eloquently stated, the risk to us is that we rezone it all R7 and for whatever reason, you all walk away, and now we're stuck with an R7 lot that can be even worse than that. What's our assurance? What controls? I mean, what can we do? Not that there's a lack of trust with you. What do we have? What sort of assurance do we have that we could control that?
We have, just before Tommy, come on up and help me out, because this is what we're trying to get to: is how do we deliver what we say we're going to deliver, and somebody can't come back in 3 years midstream and go, oh, the market bears this, and I could make more money if I do townhome. That is, I get where we are. We were just very restricted on our options as far as zoning designation because the PD. I'm like, I can draw a square up there and we can put a condition on it, but I don't think that's the right thing. Kelly and I were talking about this end of last week, and I asked him to draft a restrictive covenant that could possibly go with the deed, because I was trying to figure out a way to get this to work because we don't have a mechanism in the ordinance to do that the way this is done. And so, the Fords aren't going to encumber their property with that until it's sold, but it is something that BRD can do at closing, attach a restrictive deed to this that gives a maximum number of units allowed, and then it's with the deed. So it was just it's the only other thing I could really come up with that we could do, but I don't know how to get there.
Tommy?
She had a much better answer than I have. From the city's position, once it's zoned R7, anything that's allowed in the R7 can go there. And as I understand state law, and if I'm wrong, may the city attorney smack me and straighten me out, but we don't have conditional zoning. So you can't say we rezone it, but it has to be by this plan. So that hurts us. As far as going back to the TIA, that is something that will be required. We have talked to the traffic engineer and scope in where intersections we wanted to make sure that was included in that. And they're working on I know that they're working on it because I've had some conversations with them. The other thing we looked at, and I may be talking too much, is they ask about a variance. Could you vary lot size? Could you vary width? And there's one of the criteria in when our BZA looks, and that you can't grant a zoning that in essence effectively rezones the property. And I think when you change both the lot size and you change the lot width, that's what you're doing. And that's why when she talked about a variance from lot size and stuff, I didn't think that would fly for them.
Yeah, I mean, because the product on the left is far superior, and I think that's the best case scenario for a piece of land that is attractive otherwise and will be developed. It's just how do we ensure that happens?
I'm right there with you, and unfortunately, we're tied to this with a lot of developments. They come in with one thing, but follow through. We did discuss the planned development with her, and there has to be a commercial aspect of that, and it just that would be putting commercial basically on Oscaga Lake Road there, and I don't know that would be a good thing either.
What exactly, when they went to the planning commission, what were they asking? Was that for the variance?
No, sir. They were asking for the.
What's on the right? This.
Can you go to the other one just a second there? And that one. That within the red line.
Okay.
Be rezoned to R7 from R10.
Just that. Okay.
Just that.
So go back to the other two. So depending on what we do, I mean, there's still that on the left, that major site plan, that's still going back to the planning. The planning commission is going to see this, right? They have not seen what we're looking at, or have they?
Well, the planning commission has seen what's on the left, okay, and said no. We recommend.
They've seen that.
No. On the right, they have not seen. So
they haven't seen the right. Okay.
Correct. So they haven't seen what could be there. So that would be new information that may or may not sway their thinking. I will tell you, density-wise per acre, I did the math when they came back from the with the by right, and I think they can put 7 more single-family attached homes in there, and I forget how many more single-family homes in the R10. So they didn't. There's still room for some more, and they do fit the density requirements.
Well, my only comment really is, I'm looking at what you say is rezoning plan, right? The one on the left, right? I like the fact that we should have connectivity in the neighborhood. So I don't see why we shouldn't have these roads connected, because then you have more arteries going in and out. That's just my personal opinion. And of course, by our development code, we always talk about connectivity. So I really think we're missing it by not connecting those two roads to these existing arteries here, because that in its sense just helps relieve everything. Now, I know these people in this neighborhood aren't going to want to see the increase, but as we know, my experience, I believe that what happens, we end up being like cows, and we go a certain way every time. So only the people that are really like in the heart are going to take those roads. It's not going to be these other people. So I think we're missing it by not having that connectivity right there personally.
In our plan that we submitted, you will see 2 vacant lots there, right, that line up with those 2 future connections. We didn't want to be that person, but the room was made there.
I think you should. That's what I'm telling you. I think you should be that person, because what I do not like seeing is in our neighborhoods and communities, dead ends. And it's right there next to another road that it should be connected.
You want all 4 access points.
Yeah, I want all. And we should have that, because that's going to help on your Oscaga Lake Road transitions. It's going to help on everything. But connectivity is what we talk about in our development code. I mean, with sidewalks and everything else.
And that was the other thing with the neighbors. With that connectivity, our goal was to have, it's all going to have sidewalks, so it's walkable, and being able to get over to the state park from Howard Mill, you could walk through there if
is connected, but that was a rub.
Yeah, I know. But then the other question is, how close is this to being anywhere close to the Greenway connecting?
Well, we're putting internally some walking paths, and then we're leaving open sections on that east side to whatever gets developed over there from the park's perspective, that they have an option to tie in some sort of walking trail to ours if they want to in the future. We just don't have a plan to connect to right now. We're just making
he's talking about
assumptions.
our greenway.
I'm sorry,
It's too late.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
And I know it's probably, I mean, if you try to get the Greenway going everywhere, I was just thinking, a lot of our newer developments, we have a Greenway attachment or something, access somehow. So I was just wondering if there's a thought process on.
Councilman, that would be hard for us to do just based on Escarga Lake. The closest thing it ties into would be the Palmetto Parkway there at 520.
Extension.
Yeah. So there'd be ways to get there.
Yeah. Just thinking out loud on that one, that's all.
Think about this. Are there any other questions?
Well, not really a question, and I know what we're fixing to discuss. Do we kick it back to the planning commission, or do we vote on it? I mean, at some point, we have to vote on it anyway. I just think it delays them if we kick it back to the planning commission, because it's still going to have to come back to us. So, I mean, I would say whatever we need to do. I wouldn't want to waste more of their time, because either way, it's got to come back to us. I say we leave it on the agenda for next week. And that gives us a week to,
Councilman, just for just some background based on the discussions we had with the development team that's here and our staff, which was if they're concerned, I don't want to put words in your mouth, so if I'm speaking out of turn, let me know, is they were concerned about having unanimous planning commission having it come to city council, have you potentially overturn it, and then have them come to do another development in our town because they want to be involved in here going forward, and then have a harder time going to planning commission because we've got this discord between the two different bodies. So ideally, we'd, in their mind, it's better to have, planning commission at least on board to look at this neighborhood as opposed to having a split vote, if you will, between the two bodies.
well, then that
So you saying go back to the planning commission?
I'm saying that's an option. I'm saying you have several options that you can take, and Tommy could probably walk that through better than I can.
I think in the past, I think what we've tried to change, what we've tried to do the last few years is that, as long as we both have seen the same thing, then maybe there are decisions that we may agree to disagree. My only concern is, from what you're saying, they haven't seen and heard everything. So, I mean, we decide, we want to do it. Again, I think the planning commission needs to have opportunities, what I'm saying. We still can make that decision depending on regardless of what they do, but I think we need to be apples and apples. And right now, as we've been trying to, coordinate and go forward, I think that's my thoughts.
Well, no, and it makes sense too, because I'm sure if it's kicked back to them, they're going to see what we're seeing and say, hey, this one they're proposing is the lesser of two evils of what they could produce. I mean, it's kind of like pick one or pick the other at this point.
But we don't vote on that. It's a consensus, right?
I think, and Kelly and Tommy and I all talked about this, is you can give guidance in a study session. You're not voting on anything. And if the guidance is for the staff to, work with the developer to resubmit through the planning commission, then that's what we'll do. But Kelly can put those two
One
words in
thing
there.
I think we definitely need to know is if the developer is agreeable with it being sent back to the planning commission. Because you've gone through the process you're supposed to go through. And it's ready for a vote. And if your position is, no, we want council to vote on it, we want a decision, then we may need to go forward with it. But if the developer says, we're agreeable with it going back to the planning commission, then I would be comfortable with us doing that.
And one thing, Kelly, if by chance, when it comes back to us and we vote no, then would she have to wait a year before she requested
Yeah, for
again?
rezoning, you,
But we wouldn't come back for a rezoning, we would go by right.
to the other plan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So
Well, I just didn't want you
that's
to have to wait a year.
yeah, we would just make some version of the by right plan.
And,
Take
and
it
you
forward.
know, the other thing, and I just want, Tommy has told you, can we go back to the screen that's got the red? The thing I want to make sure that you understand, and what Tommy was saying, your vote, you might as well take all of this out as far as what's shown as a development, because that has nothing to do with your vote on the zoning. Your vote would be to change the zoning within that red area from what it is now to, let me see, from R10 to R7. And that's the vote. And, you know, and I understand, for some years, it seemed like every time we got in a spot like this, we ended up with a PD. But the PDs have changed, where you can't tie things down to them. Now, one comment you made, I've never seen it done that way, but it would be kind of interesting and the potential for the owner putting a restrictive covenant on the property that would restrict it to this plan, all of that. That might be something that would work. But we'd have to make sure that it could not, a restrictive covenant originally, if it's put on there by a developer and he doesn't sell a lot, there's nobody that can enforce it. He could remove the restrictive covenant. And I'm just saying it's an interesting idea. There may be a way to do that, and we could tie it down where an irrevocable covenant or something of that nature.
Well,
And
Kelly, okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead, baby.
That would be something that BRD would offer to do at our closing. The Fords wouldn't encumber their property now, they want to sell their property.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, at the end of the day, and so they're not going to encumber that with this. But I was just trying to find an avenue, and then that still requires a layer of trust between
And then
the
the other
city and
thing,
us until we get the permit.
and then we get into other than it, contract zoning, whether we're entering into something where you can't do that. It's something we can look at if the developer's willing to discuss that.
Well, now, Kelly, I guess this is to you what our mayor was saying. You want to compare apples to apples, not oranges and apples. So if we approve this, but the commission, planning commission has not seen this, what would be the relationship there with the planning commission and us and y'all, all three of us? I mean, that's just the way the breaks are.
Well, that's the way the system works.
Okay.
Yep.
But what the question was to you, young lady, is, and I think, Kelly, if you decide that we should vote on this, you're standing as you are. But if she says, I prefer it to go back.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's what I said.
The developer's entitled to a vote. But if the developer says, I'm satisfied to a delay with it going back to planning commission, then I see we have no problem.
So is that a decision?
I can make the decision. I would say that from a business perspective and time perspective for the sellers, you know, time is money. And so you want to get these things done. At the same token, we want to do them the right way. And I would like to do more business in North Augusta. So I just want everybody to feel good about it, but also understand. And planning commission, I think part of it was, I guess I just assumed that the density that we presented was understandably that it was less than what we could do. And that was a miss on my part. The picture just tells it all. And so, you know, giving that and showing that exhibit, planning commission didn't get to see that bit of information. And I think that would have really made a difference. So as much as, it delays us with the closing of the Fords and it delays the process a little bit to try to get to the right end, I have to say it's probably the right thing to do.
Yeah, I think Kelly's point's well taken, your point is well taken. I mean, I'm not concerned about the seller issue. That didn't tie in as far as anything to do with this council. So in my mind, I'm just saying for me, I would, again, I'd like the planning commission to see what we see.
Kelly, I got one question for you. You mentioned whether or not a restricted covenant could be enforceable if no action had been taken. In my preliminary draft document, so I named it for the benefit of the city. So my assumption in drafting the document was that, say, if we put the restriction in escrow with you until they close, but I added a clause that it could only be amended by the city. So
And I appreciate that.
I didn't know if that was.
Yeah, that would be good. Again, I need to do a little checking on that to make sure we're not getting into contract zoning.
Yeah, okay, all right.
I will remind council, the building that's being built from Martintown to Pinion, there was a covenant with that group of people years ago. And the young man died. And so the family, I guess, there was never to be any building in that area with that covenant, never. Then he died. Yeah, a road, well, they couldn't build it without the road though. So I don't know if these restricted covenants are good or not, because that one did not pan out like those citizens thought. But I'm like the mayor, it's hard to say okay. But now planning commission is, Tommy, you said June 19th, which is a week from this coming Wednesday, right?
No, ma'am.
Oh, what did I see on here?
It is June the 19th. I did say that.
Mhm.
But if this goes back to the planning commission, we need to let the public be aware of it.
Okay, so
we need to do the same notifications that we previously did. We want to do things in the light of day, so to speak.
I'm not going to lose sleep either way. I'm just saying, in a perfect world, I like the planning commission, but
Well,
I want to go with a vote.
And that's how I
vote on it.
I feel like we ought to vote on it, but I also feel like the right thing to do is to probably bring them in, let them reconsider it, and then go from there.
At the end of the day, basically we're voting, do we want plan A or plan B?
Yeah.
And the planning commission is going to be forced just like us. Now, again, they could vote them both down and then send it back to us. But I feel like eventually it's coming back to us to decide which plan we want.
It's ultimately up to us to decide, and sometimes we agree with the planning commission, and sometimes we don't. There's a history of that.
And I'm thinking if they would have had
information,
the maps here, if you would have had that then saying, hey, here's what we plan on doing if you don't rezone this, and then, I'm okay with voting on it with the exception if the covenant thing can work.
We have the information to make a vote. That's not an
absolutely.
issue.
Right. As long
Just is it important for the planning commission to?
Feel like they had all the info and
It's not a legal requirement, like Kelly said, just a matter of, as a council, do we?
And if Kelly can check and make sure the covenant that him and Kelly are talking about, if that will hold up, that would make me feel a little bit better. No offense, but stuff happens from time to time. And, we rezoned this, you could say to heck with the city and fill it all up with townhomes. So that's the one worry I have.
I think we owe it to them to go ahead and put it for a vote as soon as possible.
The bottom line is down the road anyway, planning commission will be able to see this, so.
Yeah.
I agree. I think that's probably the right thing to do.
Add the roads in.
That's a good point.
Because it leads down to a traffic light.
Okay.
Add the roads back in.
All right, so
Mr.
basically
Mayor,
we're going to move forward.
Yeah, so just to make sure I understand, I'd like to hear from the developer directly. You'd like to move forward?
Yes.
Okay, and the council's guidance is to leave it on the agenda for next week?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lee.
Mr. Mayor, that's all I have from the staff this evening, and I turn the meeting back to you.
Okay. Really, the only thing I had was a couple of things. We talked about the voting. Just Senator Tom Young put out the day that if you're in North Augusta 26 and 80 precincts, you normally vote at Fairview, but you'll be voting at the Riverview Park Activity Center. And then Fox Creek 73, did we get confirmation? Grace, that's supposed to be at North Augusta Public Safety on 5 nights now. Is that right? Yep, 573. Okay, great. The other thing I just wanted to let everybody know about the community engagement event we're going to have June the 25th at 6 p.m. at Second Providence. This is going to be an opportunity for our citizens to hear from our city administrator about a lot of things happening in the city that have nothing to do with our council voting. We're going to hear from our new chief of police and our community action team. We're going to hear some, I think, how-tos from public safety, from Linda, just things that people need to be aware of as we move forward to this new portal, but some FYI information for our citizens. That's going to be at 6 p.m. at Second Providence, community engagement on June the 25th. And that's really all I've got. So anything else? You good? Good. Everybody good? All right. Thank y'all. We stand adjourned.